Hello and welcome to Mika Aesthetics. I've been fairly busy for the past few months and haven't been able to work on this channel's content the way I would like, mostly because I haven't actually been home. My normal views are mostly corn and an occasional hill. Because I've been traveling so much, I didn't realize until I was over 10 hours away from home that I didn't have the footage I needed to edit the video that was supposed to go up in May. Instead of stressing too much about that, I decided to skip releasing a video in May, put together this smaller project, and do 2 videos in June instead. This project is what I'm affectionately calling chaos sewing. I did little to no research on how to do the alterations I wanted, didn't use a pattern, and just winged it. So on that note, let's get into things. I started by gathering my supplies. A button-up that my friend got and I adored so much that I got my own, a yard of chiffon, buttons to replace the ones on the front of the shirt and fancier ones for the cuffs I plan to make, buttonhole twist, matching thread, and a lace that I deliberated over whether or not I should add. Spoiler alert, I did not add the lace, but might in the future. I began the alterations by removing the current sleeves, which took way longer than I expected because they were seamed, overlocked, and then I had a decorative top stitching I had to deal with. Once the sleeves were off, I opened one up to use as a base shape to work from. Since I was far away from any of my supplies, except for the single needle, thimble, and scissors that I brought with me, I made do with whatever I could make this work. I traced the upper curve of the sleeve, and then did the cutting thing I see people do to add width and hopefully it'll puff on top. At this point, I realized I didn't have anything to draw with on the fabric. I tried thread marking and wanted to exist differently. So I raided the place I was staying and found a Sharpie that I very carefully dotted my lines with. And I didn't have a ruler, so I used the takeout bag I got my Ethiopian food delivered in as a straight edge. The food was delicious, and the bag incredibly useful. Before cutting, I pinned the fabric, so when I would cut, I would get 2 matching sleeves. Once they were cut, I pinned them in preparation to sew during my car ride home. Once I got home, I had to iron the shirt out because it had been transported in a Ziploc and had become incredibly wrinkled. I then ironed the sleeves as well, so I could do the other side of the French seam I decided to use for these, because the chiffon and the shirt fabric both are exceptionally prone to fraying. I finished up those seams and made some quick darts in the shirt because this was made for someone with a lot flatter front than myself. At this point, I made the executive decision to shorten the length of my shirt. It hit my lower hip and I like my shirts to hit a little higher on my body. I measured 6 inches from the bottom, trimmed and seamed with a backstitch. After I shortened it, I decided to replace the front buttons. I moved the buttons one by one, replaced them as I went so I could keep their original spacing. Additional button at the collar, which meant that I had to add a buttonhole and cover all the other buttonholes with a twist so they would match. It is at this point that my pool of knowledge dried up and the winging it began. I guesstimated where I wanted the sleeves, how they would lay, and pinned them in, trimming as I went so it would be easier to sew. I also just eyeballed the other sleeve to hopefully match. I realized that I was very lucky that I had decided to shorten the shirt, because now I actually had enough fabric that matched the shirt to make the cuffs. I cut the old bottom of the shirt at the seams and down center back, giving me the inside and outside for my cuff. I sewed the two sides together and added interfacing to make the cuff stand properly. Although, I don't think I managed to attach the interfacing well enough, because it looks a bit wonky in my opinion. This part, I definitely researched how to do. I used a sewing book by Allison Smith as reference to figure out how the cuff should be attached. Once they were sewn on and flipped right side out, I whip stitched the inside down and added buttonholes and the fancy buttons. Is this whole thing slightly wonky? Yes. Do I care? No, because I am too busy being proud of my hand-done buttonholes and buttons. It's very comfortable to wear, and I am super excited to make a better, more researched, and possibly patterned version in the future. Please like if you enjoy the video and comment. I would love to hear your input and if you've done any chaotic projects lately yourselves. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more chaos sewing in the future, or just normal projects too. I do normal things sometimes. Toodles!